Hi, and welcome to another episode of my timeline. I am Miss MP, and in today's episode, I want to look at Richie Sunak. Who is this guy? I know the British people, they've gotten a mouthful of who he is, what he's about, but in this episode, I'm gonna break down a bit of his situation, the level of wealth he has, and what he does with his money, who he's associated with, and what are they up to. I'll also touch on another content creator who breaks down how people stay rich through philanthropic endeavors. And we'll get into more things. Stay tuned and I hope you enjoy. So let's get into this. Richie Sunak, he is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. The way how he got into power is a bit kind of like second fiddle. The one that was chosen, she made a mess of the economy and he came in as a second choice. So let's get into who he is. Richie Sunak, born 12 May 1980, is a British politician who has served as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and leader of the Conservative Party since 2022. He's the first British Asian Prime Minister. He previously held 2 cabinet positions under Boris Johnson. Lastly, as Chancellor of Exchequer from 2020 to 2022. Sunak has been a Member of Parliament for Richard, or quote-unquote Yorks, since 2015. Wikipedia does a really good job of breaking down his life, and I wanted to use this example here just to give like a quick, brief look at his life as an adult, his career path, etc. So let's get into this part. Sunak was born in Southampton to parents of Indian descendants who immigrated to Britain from East Africa in the 1960s. He was educated at Winchester College, studied philosophy, politics, and economics at Lincoln College, Oxford, and earned an MBA from Stanford University in California as a Fulbright scholar. During his time at Oxford University, Sunak undertook an internship at Conservative Central Office and joined the Conservative Party. After graduating, Sunak worked for Goldman Sachs and later as a partner at the hedge fund firms Children's Investment Fund Management and Thelem Partners. I hope I said that right. Sunak was elected to the House of Commons for Richmond in North Yorkshire at the 2015 general election. As a backbencher, Sunak supported the successful campaign for Brexit in the 2016 European Union membership referendum. Following the 2017 general election, Sunak was appointed to a junior ministerial position in Theresa May's second government as Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Local Government in the 2018 Cabinet reshuffle. He voted 3 times in favor of May's Brexit withdrawal agreement, which was rejected by Parliament 3 times, leading to May. I think I'll stop right there. And I want to show you a bit about his business career because that's what I'm most concerned about. I feel like his political life really is what we see on the forefront, but we don't have a sense of who he really is and where his mind and his logic and his thoughts behind getting into government comes from. I remember reading in someone's comment section where there was like a battle of 2 people saying, oh my gosh, Richie is like way more richer than the prince, or now the king, King Charles. He's way more wealthy, and the other person's like, no way. The king has all this property, all of these things. And there was this back and forth, which to me was just stupid. I feel like people battling over who's richer is such a weird conversation to like witness. And so that kind of piqued my interest a little. And that's how I decided to look a bit into what he's all about in terms of his finances. And so let's get into it. Sunak worked as an analyst for the investment bank Goldman Sachs between 2001 and 2004. He then worked for hedge fund management firm, the Children's Investment Fund Management, becoming a partner in September of 2006. He left in November 2009 to join former colleagues in California at a new hedge fund firm, Thelm Partners, which launched in October 2010 with $700 million under management. At both hedge funds, his boss was Patrick DeGosse. Sunak was also a director of the investment firm Catamaran Ventures, owned by his father-in-law, the Indian businessman N.R. I'm not going to butcher his name. I'll just say N.M. of InfoSize between 2013 and 2015. So now that I got that out of the way, I just want to point out that he got married to his wife in 2009. That will come up very significantly because you get a sense of how the money started flowing more easily and readily once he gets married. In other words, he married up. And so, with us now having a sense of his business affiliations, I decided to look into who are the players, who are the main people in the Children's Management Fund, I think they call it, right? And this guy, Chris Holm, I think I said his name right, in this picture is the main guy. The headlines don't really help too much that he might be a greedy guy. You know, let me not say I give people the shadow of the doubt, but I strongly believe in this headline that he's paying himself $1 million a day. It doesn't sound obviously out of the norm. People with money do these things. They are greedy, even though his fund is called the Children's Management Fund. Wikipedia doesn't have too much about him except that he is a billionaire and he's 56 and he went to university. He is a hedge fund manager, etc., etc. Okay, so I want us to now focus on known for. Wikipedia added this bit in. It says here that he is the founder and CEO of the Children's Investment Fund Management and the founder and chair to the Children's Investment Fund Foundation. This is very important in this whole video. Stick with me. We're getting somewhere. I'm just building the thread. There are some important things I first need to understand. I need to understand what is an investment fund. What are these things? Because they're just words tossed around. You kind of have an idea what they are, but I just want to get an idea here, a definition, a true definition of what these things are. So I wanted to get a sense of what is a hedge fund? What is these investment funds? What are they? What do they do? What is a private investment fund, you ask? A private investment fund is an investment company that does not solicit capital from retail investors or the general public. Members of a private investment company typically have deep knowledge of the industry as well as investment elsewhere. To be classified as a private fund, a fund must meet one of the exceptions outlined in the investment clause and acts and stuff like that. But before we get into this article that's really going to tie everything together, I want to talk about or just show you where this money is going to, what's happening, etc. This here is straight out from the Children's, I'm going to get it wrong, it's such a long name, Children's Investment Fund Management. Okay, whatever. This one here is the foundation portion of it. This is not the fund. Now, the fund, after reading it, I can't exactly put my finger on where I read it, but the fund isn't necessarily for children. It was named after the foundation. So this is where the confusion comes in. I feel like putting the children in there made people kind of be like, oh, this fund is for children. No, that's not what it's for. So this here gives a bit of the breakdown of the endowment and grant portfolio. Over the past decade, CIFF's endowment has grown to a value of $6 billion after charitable activities and costs. With this strong financial base, we have built a growing portfolio of charitable grants with a value of over $2.1 billion. In the 2020 financial year, grant disbursement totaled $344 million. Below is an overview of our current multi-year commitments by sector. And here they just break down, like there's going to be money going towards climate change, children's health and development, girl capital, sexual and reproductive health and rights, child protection, etc., etc. So these funds are going towards particular areas. Those areas were India, several parts of Africa and Asia. So they have like special offices in these different locations, which is wonderful, right? But here I wanted to look at the initiative that they were doing in Africa, the Children's Investment Fund Foundation. Okay, let's take a listen. I'm going to read it. CIF's Nairobi office has been operational since 2009. Remember what happened in 2009? Richie Sunak got married in 2009. And in 2019, we opened our offices in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, officially signing a memorandum of understanding with the Ethiopian government in 2019, increasing the level of localization and on-the-ground program development and leadership in East Africa. To date, CIFF investments span across 29 African countries, with our largest investments in Kenya, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Nigeria, Malawi, Zimbabwe, Ghana, Uganda, South Africa, Sierra Leone, Burkina Faso, and Mozambique. CIFF's first integrated Africa strategy for 2020 to 2025 was developed in 2019. This strategy is committed to building systematic solutions, resilient communities, and local, etc., etc., etc. So now everyone that is reading this or looking at this with me must be thinking to themselves, okay, this sounds good, but it's so vague. This is a lot of money. And that is my problem. This is where people feel really sketchy about giving money to the Red Cross and these different philanthropic associations or funds. everything they do is so vague. It's so like, we don't want to give too much information. But here we're going to see where Sunak spends his money. And yeah, let's get into this details. So I wanted to get a sense of like, okay, this guy supposedly is so rich, super rich. Now we have an understanding that he married into a lot of money. He made quite a bit of money on his own, being a partner, etc. But he has like 4 residents and they're all like varying sizes and values. So here in this article, they break down the 4 properties that he has. Yeah, so as you can see, that's 1, that's 2, that's 4. Yeah, and this one here makes it 4 or 5.5 pound penthouse, a manor. It's a lot. And so all while I'm doing this research into the Prime Minister of Britain, this video pops on my timeline, and I'm like, I knew there was something behind all these different funds, all these investment funds that are happening. There has to be more to it, you know. And she mentions this article, which I'm going to read, that breaks down, you know, how people that are super wealthy, super greedy, want to feel better about being so rich, but they don't want to do the right thing, how they get around to it. But first, go check out her video. This is the video, and her channel, very good listen, perfect. So we're gonna get into this article. How philanthropy benefits the super rich. There are more philanthropists than ever before. Each year they give tens of billions to charitable causes. So how come inequality keeps rising? Paul, very good question, I might ask. Philanthropy. It is popularly supposed transfer money from the rich to the poor. That is not the case. In the US, which statistics show to be the most philanthropic of nations, barely a fifth of the money donated by big givers goes to the poor. A lot goes to the arts, sports, teams, and culturally pursuits, and half goes to education and healthcare. At first glance, that seems to fit the popular profile of giving to good causes. But dig down a little. Philanthropy is always an expression of power. Giving often depends on the personal whims of super rich individuals. Sometimes these coincide with the priorities of society, but at other times they contradict or undermine them. Increasingly, questions have begun to be raised about the impact these mega donations are having upon priorities of society. So here, this part of the article talks about Bill and Melinda Gates giving back and how that has been good in some cases. But here I'm going to read about how it's affecting politics. The result has been what the late German billionaire, shipping magnate, and philanthropist Peter Kramer called a bad transfer of power from democratically elected politicians to billionaires, so that it is no longer the state that determines what is good for the people, but rather the rich who decide. And see, so this is a problem because even billionaires are realizing, hey, this is not good. And we're going to go on to the next part of the article. And so the biggest donations in education in 2019 went to the elite universities and schools that the rich themselves had attended. In the UK, in the 10-year period to 2017, more than 2/3 of the millionaire donations, which is what, 4.7 billion pounds, went to higher education, and half of those went to just two universities, Oxford and Cambridge. When the rich and the middle classes give to schools, they give more to those attended by their own children than to those of the poor. British millionaires in that same decade gave 1.04 billion pounds to the arts and just 222 million to alleviating poverty. And so this portion here of the article just says that, there's like 260,000 philanthropy foundations, again with the foundations, and they amassed an amount of money that is just enormous. They're saying it could be $1.5 trillion. You need to go listen to that lady's video, and she breaks down how the taxes work, because she's a lawyer by trade, and she explains how the taxes work, and how these asset managers are able to use the fund to manage their money in such a way that it benefits them. And so some would probably think, well, they worked really hard, to garner all this money and stuff like that. People that are this wealthy, they don't work hard. They've done the work earlier in the beginning, and they just so happen to be at the right time, the right place, with the right amount of talent and gusto, that they were able to push forward and amass a lot of wealth. It's kind of like you happen to press a button in the casino and you won money, and it just keeps coming and coming, and you're like, holy moly, this is a lot of money I'm making, and I barely did anything. And I think that is what's happening. In this example, Henry Ford was well known for starting the 40-hour week and the weekends. Okay? But he was not the bestest person of all. But he was also a sick individual. Yeah, I'll get into a bit of what he did. But in here, it talks about him being, he really liked what the Germans did with the H guy over there. He had like a whole conspiracy about that. The guy was breaking up unions. And he came from prosperous family. So he had a good beginning. Like, he was not like in squalor. He definitely was a farm kid. I'm sure farm kids, their lives are not like wonderful, but they have a level of comfort that other children don't. So he had everything around him possible to support his efforts to go out and learn. And so my final thoughts is, Rishi Sunak is no different than the Henry Fords of the world. They have an agenda, and they want to experiment with the masses. I've been saying lately that we're all in a big laboratory, and that is what society is. It's an experiment, and they're just testing out things. Now they're not afraid to get into government and to politicize everything. Now they are in there, they're up there, and they're just doing their thing. Some people, they happen to have a heart, and they have positive things to spread. But others, hey, they are completely comfortable with the way things are going. So if you like this quick breakdown, it's not very quick, but I try my best to just get my thoughts out. But if you enjoyed this, please do like. And if you want to hear more of it, please do subscribe. And I think you have to press that bell so that you can get notifications when I do post. I will put stuff in the community tab section, so look out for those as well. Thank you for all who checked out my previous video about the Brexit villains and victims. I appreciate that very much, and I look forward to doing more on and just analyzing all of these politicians. We need to look at them very closely and who they associate with, etc. Have a good one. Thanks again. Bye-bye.